Well, I'm just so glad that Glenn mentioned spiral dynamics and how our thinking evolves from, first to sort of a legalistic copying the old framework to a new, and then emerging to something more dynamic and interactive with people. And I do appreciate that he has a fixed document for ratification now, but I'd love to see how you'd like to interact to continue to evolve from that, as you said, maybe after ratification or to plan beyond it for your future books, but toward more fluid, interactive global system. I know, Gary Davis talked about, a integrity system that doesn't wait for, global system that starts as something that's interactive between people like these kind of Zoom talks, but has certain tools and advantages that are bringing to the top the highest and best wisdom, and people start interacting with that, and it starts becoming something so valuable, like an app that everybody wants to do it, and you begin to give it teeth by creating citizen forms of enforcement. And I think there's ways we can. I love all these different methods. Every path is important because they're all doing what you said, raising the consciousness that we have to think globally and think as world citizens. But I do, I guess, ask as you continue to write books and in this field, do you want to continue to move the vision forward into a more interactive, blockchain-oriented, people-oriented system, synergistic system?
Well,
thank you, Arthur.
One of the things that we have been developing the last few years is a response to a number of criticisms that said the Constitution is top down, right? It's like this one blueprint for everybody, and it's we have all kinds of projects going on around the world, run by WCPA people, feeding people in India who, and the rest of it, educating people and so on, and it's synergistically the top and the bottom need to be together in what I call holarchy, right? A holarchy isn't just an anarchy of everybody doing their own thing. A holarchy means the top and the bottom interact in a healthy and spiritually awakened way, a holism. So I'll send you a copy of my book when it comes out in May, Arthur, and you can you can address that question in terms of my arguments there, but ultimately it's another very large question, right? We're still on Article 1 and it's a very large question, but I think all the interaction and the synergy is excellent, spiral dynamics, excellent, but I think the Constitution as a fixed document is a key to helping us move forward. That's my argument now.
Great. Glenn, let me ask you a quick question from a facilitation standpoint. Since we've covered 2 of the 10 sections that we're trying to cover in an hour, and we have a little more than a half hour to go, do you think it would make sense for you to go through the rest of the articles up through 9, and then we'll take questions through to the end of the time?
Okay, that sounds fine.
Great, thank you. So take it away.
Okay, Article 2, the key is 2.2, bottom of page 29, right? World government for the Federation of Earth shall be non-military and shall be democratic in its own structure, with ultimate sovereignty residing in all the people who live on the earth. All right, this question of sovereignty is a long one in philosophy of law, which I'm teaching a course right now in philosophy of law, and I think it's something that needs to be appreciated, and that is that the only legitimate sovereignty, Errol Harris, philosopher Errol Harris also makes this same argument, that the only legitimate sovereignty is the sovereignty that comes from the people of Earth themselves, as expressed in the Earth Constitution, because sovereignty means that it has 2 features to it. One is that a government has power over its territory. it has the capacity to enforce laws. But the other feature sovereignty has for most philosophers of law is legitimacy, right? A government the Nazi government was powerful over its territories, but it was not legitimate, right? And legitimacy requires democracy, consent of the government, governed, and so on. So no nation on earth is legitimate anymore because the legitimacy comes from a nation, a government, serving the common good of its citizens, right? There's no nation on earth can do this because the common good is now planetary. There's no nation on earth that can get rid of those nuclear weapons that are endangering us every single day of the year, right? There's no nation on earth that can protect the global environment. There's no nation on earth that can give us universal human rights protection. So every government on earth is illegitimate because they do not recognize the only truly legitimate sovereignty, which is the sovereignty of the people of earth, the common good of everybody. We're all the same. We all have the same rights. We all have the same dignity. That's what has to be recognized. And that's fundamental to the Earth Constitution. Okay, so Article 3 is, you see that on page 31, that's the organs. It's just simply a list of the main organs: the World Parliament, the World Executive, World Administration, Integrative Complex, the World Judiciary, Enforcement System, and the World Ombudsman. And then Article 4, and this is the one I mentioned earlier. If you're worried about Article 1 being too comprehensive, Article 4 gives the sovereign people of Earth all kinds of powers, right? Power to prevent war and armed conflict, to supervise disarmament, to prohibit incitement to war, right? To provide the means for peaceful and just solutions. And then it goes on, in 41 different items and here's the key thing. Right now, I think, the world is dominated by the global banking cartels, World Bank, IMF, the global imperial nations, China, Russia, United States, the global multinational corporations, and the super rich who own a tiny group of whom own 50% of the world's wealth, right? We need, if we're going to have a decent future on this planet, we need to put the people of Earth in power over those gigantic forces. They have to be over the banking cartels. Get rid of the Federal Reserve in the United States, which is a private banking cartel, right? They have to be over the multinational corporations, which now do pretty much whatever they feel like doing. It must be over the giant militarized nation states. You've got to have the authority to disarm the United States and disarm China and disarm, how are we going to do this unless we have the people of Earth recognizing their sovereignty and having a means to do that? And that means is the Earth Constitution, right? So that's what Article 4 does. It gives the people of Earth the authority to protect the global environment. And it says, for example, one big issue right now is the question of the global commons, right? This article, The Tragedy of the Commons, came out in the 1960s, and people said, if you have a commons, it's going to get ruined by everybody trying to use it. And so I have argued in articles that the global commons needs to be owned by the people of Earth, right? The UN Sustainable Development Goals in item 18 of their document says that every nation owns its own natural resources, its own economic processes, every nation within its borders had control of its own water and air and so on. This is a prescription for disaster for the earth, because it allows, for example, under the UN system, the SDG system, it allows Brazil to destroy the lungs of the earth, right? We know that most of the lungs of the earth, there's some in Ecuador and the other nations there, but most of the lungs of the earth are in Brazil. And right now, the government of Brazil is cutting down and destroying the lungs of the earth. And under the UN system, they have the legal right to do this, right? The US in 2016, President Trump became president. He withdrew from the Paris Climate Accords, right? The US has the legal right to do that, right?